So I'm here at the Missouri Museum here in Jefferson City, and this is about the history of slavery. Some of this information I thought was really interesting. It says, the average Missouri Negro looked upon being sold south as 1 or 2 degrees worse than being sent straight to hell. Wow. These are quotes I'm reading. It says, Missouri slave owners disciplined their slaves with the threat of being sold down south. Slaves were profitable transactions that sometimes led to the separations of black families. In Jackson County, first-class Negro men commanded $1,200, women $1,000, and boys and girls from $500 to $1,000, according to size and age. Negro property in this region is yearly appreciating in value. These are all quotes I'm reading. Most Missouri slaves worked on small farms where master and slave often worked side by side. The average Missouri slaveholder owned no more than 4 slaves. Okay. Unearthed in this county, the iron plowshare was originally attached to a wooden moldboard. Slave craftsmen were capable of making many of the tools which they worked. Okay, that's some of the old tools they used as they were slaves. And then it says, a few slaves worked in white homes as butlers, maids, nurses, and cooks. Domestic workers and field hands were often hired out to work for others. The owner received a rental fee while the employer clothed and fed the hired slaves. So interesting. It was basically just business. Missouri slaves had opportunities to learn more skills than typical slaves in the Deep South. Since they could not farm in winter, many worked part-time as carpenters, hatters, cabinet makers, tailors, shoemakers, and blacksmiths. They earned money for their owners and themselves. Okay. So because of, I guess, Missouri's weather, they had to learn other things outside of farming. That makes sense. It says the lives of Missouri slaves differed from the slaves in the Deep South. Few large single crop plantations existed in Missouri. Like their owners, slaves were experienced at raising a variety of crops and livestock. Some were encouraged to develop skills other than farming. One fact of slavery was constant everywhere. Slaves were considered to be property with few personal rights. Understanding the experiences of Missourians under slavery is important to understanding Missouri today. Black origins, hard work, and hope. Okay. It says black people were among Missouri's earliest non-Indian inhabitants. In 1720, mining promoter Philip Renault began importing enslaved people from the French colony of Haiti to mine lead near mine La Motte. This mine was located in French colonial Missouri in present-day Madison County. After emancipation in 1865, blacks could move to Missouri as free people in search of opportunity. Many came from the South in the early 1900s to farm cotton as sharecroppers in the Missouri Boothel. New cotton land had been created by swamp drainage and labor was needed. Under the sharecropping system, a landowner provided each tenant with a shack, mules, seed, tools, and credit. Profits were to be shared equally, but high prices and interest rates kept most sharecroppers in debt. So interesting. It says, most early black Missourians came from the Upper South during the first half of the 19th century. Thousands entered Missouri as enslaved laborers with their westward moving enslavers. Although some free blacks were residents, they were generally not welcome in the slave-holding state. Some more info here. It says Missouri's black population swelled after World War I. Rapid industrialization attracted thousands of Southern blacks to the cities in search of work. In Kansas City and St. Louis, they joined black Missourians who had migrated to urban areas after the abolition of slavery. There were not enough jobs for all, and poverty became the reality of life for many blacks in Missouri. It says the first black Missourians were slaves. They came against their will to reap the bounty of the new land for their owners. Until the Civil War ended slavery, they labored to build Missouri for others after emancipation. They worked to claim a share of the state their labor had built. The story of their struggle against adversity is an integral part of the Missourian spirit. Okay, the black influence on music. It says modern-day American music has important roots in Missouri. As the 20th century began, talented musicians from Sedalia to St. Louis worked to combine black folk tunes, traditional dances, and European classics into a truly American sound. Ragtime, blues, and jazz all benefited from the musical genius of Black Missourians.
Here. Raymond.
It says Battle Island Mound. So I'll read a little bit. It says here, Confederate guerrillas used Bates County as a base of operation throughout 1862. On October 26, the 1st Kansas Colored Infantry was sent from Lincoln Con to clean out the guerrillas. The men of the 1st Kansas set up camp and named it Fort Africa. 3 days later, and rebel troops set fire to the prairies near Fort Africa, using the smoke as cover. Guerrillas engaged Union pickets and then withdrew toward Island Mound. So it says the Battle of Island Mound was the first Civil War engagement that involved African American troops. Members of the 1st Kansas Colored Infantry fought guerrilla troops in a field on the western side of Missouri. Okay, so some of the info about that. And let me see here what we got. German origins to think and act as a free man. It says let me read this here. It says, early 19th century Germany was a collection of kingdoms, principalities, and independent states. During the 1830s and 1840s, revolutionary movements attempted unsuccessfully to liberalize the old authoritarian government. Some of Missouri's most influential German leaders fled to America after the Revolution of 1832, 33, and 34. Wow, I would have never known that. So interesting. And then let me get this last part here. This is Old World War ways, traditions preserved from the fatherland. It says here, a tradition of organized social and cultural activity helped maintain Germanic values. Clubs, associations, societies, and festivals brought Missouri Germans together to share and affirm their cherished Old World virtues. It says, religion was the cornerstone of the traditional German life. Since German towns in Missouri were often settled by immigrants from the same religion, each was dominated by a single church, usually Catholic or Lutheran. Okay, that makes sense. This is a Bible from 1794. Wow. That's a really old Bible. Okay. This says, the Napoleonic Wars plunged Europe into turmoil during the early 1800s. And the German principalities, overpopulation, poverty, and despotism drove many to seek new lives in America. They came for better land and higher wages, but also to perpetuate in the New World a cherished German way of life that they saw threatened in the Old. To Missouri, they transplanted a rich Germanic heritage that is evident today. Wow, so much history here. This is so much. Okay, here it says, German handiwork, pride, patience, and craftsmanship. As Missouri's pioneer period ended, the market for ornamental goods grew. So this is a man, I guess that's like a harp. It says, German craftsmen trained in the rigorous apprentice system of the Old World brought a tradition of workmanship to Missouri. Machine-produced goods were replaced by handmade items in Europe by the middle 1800s. But in Missouri, a man could live well by spending part of his time farming and part of his time creating essential goods for the pioneer market. Okay. They just make bad cars like Mercedes. Okay. Interesting. This is Captain Charles Mouse. Mouse was so proud of his war service in the 5th Missouri State that he named his Jefferson City business the Union Hotel. It is preserved in Jefferson Landing State Historic Site. It says, when Southerners threatened to take Missouri out of the Union in 1861, St. Louis Germans organized to oppose them. When war began, trained German volunteers were ready to drive pro-Confederate forces from the state. Missouri units such as I don't know how you say his name, Lagerberg's battery, the Schwarzjägers and the Western Turner rifles fought bravely for the Union. Wow. Among thousands of Missouri Germans who fought for the Union was Captain Hamilton. The 26-year-old county farmer served in the 8th Missouri Volunteer Cavalry from 1862 to 1865. I didn't realize there was such a big German history here in Missouri. Okay, almost to the end here. It says, food for heart and soul, the German cultural tradition. A number of fine German artists congregated in St. Louis, where they had made their lives primarily from painting portraits. The Buffalo Hunt by Carl Wilmer in 1861. So that's some Native Americans hunting the buffalo. It says, be sure to bring to America all the sheet music you could collect, and do not fail to bring the complete works. I don't know how you say that name. Somebody German. It says, while most German immigrants were farmers of peasant stock, some were educated aristocrats. Inclined toward romanticism, they imagined Missouri as a new Germany where culture would flourish. These Latin farmers could read ancient languages but knew little of farming, and many became disillusioned by pioneer life. Some left, but others remained to establish the tradition of cultural sophistication in the Missouri heartland. I didn't realize there was such a big German history here. Okay. Very interesting. So big African and German history here in Missouri. So interesting. All right.